My name is Sylvia, and I have the absolute honor of introducing our moderator for this panel, Monica Wheat. Now, Monica is a woman who tenaciously wears many hats: leader, speaker, strategist, educator, entrepreneur, and venture developer. She's founded more than one company in her time, including Digerati Girls, a nonprofit that introduces young students to digital technology, entrepreneurship, and innovation. And she's also the lead for Detroit Startup Week and helps organize Startup Weekend Detroit and more. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be your moderator for the panel. Take it away.
Monica, if you want to please come on stage. Next, I'd like to invite Josh York from York Project. One for a good friend of mine, studied at Michigan State, and now he's doing great things in Detroit. Next, I'd like to invite founders of Fathom, Matt and John. And next, I'd like to invite founder of Veely, JP. Please come on stage.
This is a youth entrepreneurship panel, and it's definitely celebrating what is going on in the Detroit ecosystem. So for those who don't know, we're in the midst of one of the largest entrepreneur-based segments of our history as a city. We have amazing panelists here, and I'd love to learn a little bit more about you guys. One of the things that we talk about a lot, be it on the accelerator side or when we're at pitch competitions, is we talk about the bug. So when people first got that itch to create something or to build something. So can you give me, I guess, an example or the first time when you got the bug?
So I'm in apparel and clothing. I've been selling T-shirts since I was 12 at school. I used to get in trouble in the hallways for I was literally selling T-shirts out of my locker. The Chiquita banana sticker that said fun size bananas, I would put my last name on it, York, and I would say York, fun size bananas, and sell them to my friends. And that was the first thing that got me into clothes and sales and business.
Okay. How old were you?
12.
Okay.
I was in 6th grade and I got sent to the principal's office.
Okay. Fathom?
Yeah, I'm John, by the way, again, and I think a lot of young I guess we all get our own mic.
It's okay.
Like a lot of young engineers and entrepreneurs, it hit me pretty early, just like you, Josh, where it was my first Star Wars Lego set. It was amazing. I loved those, and it was truly there where I realized I love to build things and create things. And then it hit me again when I was in high school and starting a robotics club. I was a stud in high school, but no, it was fun because just creating these things and building teams and getting ideas out there to solve problems is really what I realized business was all about, entrepreneurship was all about. So I'd say that was probably the first time.
Okay.
Yeah, I think for me it was, we used to do, me and my brother, when we started sixth grade, I don't know, maybe 6th grade is the magic grade, I don't know. But 6th grade we did slushy. Not we didn't want to be a lemonade stand. We wanted to be slushies.
Matt loves slushies.
Yeah, he's always drinking slush.
But we wanted to make sure we were the coolest kids on the block, and we probably made $50. But I think that was that, and then right at the end of high school is kind of when I got the bug again. Just kind of randomly showed up.
Okay. Will?
I guess for me, I'm not sure I could talk about it, but I guess it's fair grounds. So I guess my first little personal involvement in business is I used to have this little cigarette hustle. So I went to a French school. So if none of you are familiar, French kids tend to smoke earlier than American kids. So in middle school, this was around the time when the taxes on cigarettes were skyrocketing, and the prices for packs were going up really high. And I had a couple of friends or connections in the Caribbean that used to ship cartons of cigarettes to me, and I used to sell them for $5.
How old were you?
I was 13
It's insane.
at the time. So that was kind of the first one. I guess on the more legal side of things, started my first business when I was 19, which was a French catering business. But I really did that out of necessity because I had to pay my way through college. So that's when I kind of applied, if you want, all the little learnings from the little businesses and the little side things I was doing.
Okay. Excellent. So it seems like 12, 13-ish was kind of when everybody first kind of got their first feet wet, if you will. So fast forward to now. In your current companies, in your current roles, do you guys consider yourselves hackers or do you consider yourselves hustlers? And for the audience, it's a difference for most of our audiences of people who are doing the coding or people who are creating the ideas and creating the business structure.
Okay. I would say I'm definitely not a hacker.
Okay.
Especially my business is apparel. It's very, like, I'm not doing anything or our business is not doing anything that's that unique. We're kind of taking what a couple other people are doing and putting our own spin on it, and then trying to just hustle harder than them and make it happen and get the sales.
Okay. And from a business perspective, how long did it take you to get to where you are now from when you first started?
When I very first started my company now, it's been 5 years ago this December. So.
Okay.
And it's always been a side hustle or side project for me during college. I actually quit my corporate job a month ago, and we just opened up a store at 12 Oaks Mall in Novi.
Congratulations.
So this is the first time we're like really doing it. So I guess 4.5 years to get to where we are now.
Okay, John.
Yeah, I think for me, I consider myself, I think we all had to be a little bit of both, because we were building a technology company, a specifically complex technology at that, on a bootstrap budget. Specifically here in Michigan, it can be hard to fundraise, because we started this in college. So we didn't really know exactly what went into the whole fundraising process, so we had to be as efficient as possible. Mm-hmm. So we didn't really have the luxury to choose, I think, whether we wanted to really get out there and not only build the company, but build the actual technology. We had to do both, which is really exciting, though, because I think we all learned a ton from that. And now we can be a little bit more role specific, now that we've grown. We're doing this full time, and we're really loving what we're doing. So I'd say a little bit of both.
Okay. And how long was your path from like when you had the first idea for this to where you guys are now?
Right. So it's been about 3 years.
Okay.
And again, that started in college, and it was just a passion project. And it was that moment when someone kind of said, "Hey, I would pay you money for this." That was like the golden words that we had to hear, and then it was all, hit the ground running from there. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, it's, in college I got a degree in chemistry, and now I do nothing with that degree. It's great. But now I do purely on the operations and business side on the, fundraising and financials and operations for Fathom. And so I think my role has shifted from, I used to be more of a hacker, and now I'm definitely more of a hustler. I actually got in trouble with Ted at Techstars a little bit for hustling a little too much before program. So. Yeah.
And how long was the same path?
Yeah, so I actually started entrepreneurship pieces of it freshman year of college, so
Okay.
a little bit before Fathom. But our Fathom journey, started 3 years ago.
Okay. And last but not least?
I think for me it's all hustle, I would say, because most of the things I've learned or applied to business are things I just learned through life and experiences. So yeah.
Okay, excellent. So for those of us who are in the audience, how many, by show of applause, how many of you have had an idea or have an idea that you're currently pursuing and trying to make money off of? Okay.
Yeah.
How many of you have an idea but you have not yet made money off of it?
Just as good.
Okay, that works too. So one of the things that one of the biggest questions that we often get in this space is money. How do you get the money to get these businesses off the ground? And so there's a couple of different routes, and I'm particularly interested in, first there's obviously venture capital, and then you can go the bootstrap route, which is funding it yourself, or you can do more of a crowd-funded perspective. So I'd like you guys to talk a little bit about which is your preference and why.
I love bootstrapping it, and we've actually done a little bit of two, and we're about to do a third, so I can briefly discuss that. But I actually started my company with $5. I literally bought a shirt, sold another shirt, bought 2 more shirts, sold 2 more. It just expanded from there, and I never had to take on funding. It was always able to sustain itself, which is really cool.
Okay.
But then we actually did get $20,000 in pre-seed funding for an accelerator. So I've done that route, and then we're actually going to try and raise 50 in the spring through crowdfunding. So
Okay.
Preference, I don't know. They all have their own good and bad things. I just think bootstrapping, as opposed to having too much capital, really forces you to be creative and figure stuff out. And then once you have that money, it's oh well, now I can do this way more effectively because I have some money to do it. But you already have that base understanding.
Okay. And so you guys are a part of, or have been a part of, I'm assuming this is at least your first, if not more, accelerator. Mm-hmm. So you are going that route of getting accelerated venture-backed funding. So talk a little bit about that, but also talk about your preference as well.
Yeah, I can start, and then I'll let Matt kind of follow up on the VC side of things. But I think everybody, no matter what business you're starting, needs to bootstrap to some extent, because it does breed a really healthy mindset about how you handle money. Like that is the ultimate example of bootstrapping. Like you sell one thing to buy two more things, that kind of an idea. But even when, it was us in kind of the early days of our company really scrapping to get, student competitions or pitch competitions, and similar to what was like going on today with the mobility competition, but just finding every potential source of, grant money or something that we could. So we didn't have to pour a lot of our own funds into it because we were college students. We really didn't have any. But just getting creative really creates a healthy mindset about how you can be creative with your company and really push it forward without, being bloated with unnecessary capital. Because I think that's a really unhealthy mindset that we hear a lot about today in the news, where companies are getting bought out for billions of dollars or raising millions of dollars. And I think it was Ted through the Techstars program that told us the first day, everyone's just celebrating taking on debt. That's really what they're doing, and it's necessary. It's a lot of it is so necessary. But if you can bootstrap at least for a little while, I think that's completely necessary.
Yeah. That was really good. So I think our piece of it that I think because as Fathom we've done all three. We've done Kickstarter campaign, we've done bootstrapping as John alluded to, and now we're taking on more venture capital, being part of Techstars and getting some angel investors on board now. So we've done all three. In terms of preference, I think it depends where you are in the stages. At our stage right now, venture capital is pretty intriguing because we need not only money, but we need a lot of resources and networking and people. And that's what a lot of investors bring. They bring a huge network. They bring just a lot of knowledge and experience. And for us right now, experience is really key, especially we graduated college a year and a half ago, so experience is light on our own team. And then the other piece of crowdfunding is super intriguing. It's still really early. We've done $250,000 on crowdfunding, and it's super powerful. We have in our pitch today, we talked a lot of the community base of it and building that up, and that's been huge for us, learning from them and getting their feedback. So a lot of it is the people you bring in. I think that's the end of the day, that determines how valuable it is. Because if it's just dumb money or money that has it's money but nothing, no resources behind it, then it's not that useful. Because as John mentioned, if you have money and don't know what to do with it, or you spend it unwisely, it's a waste of time.
Okay.
So to come at it from another perspective, and this is based on my personal experience, I would actually say don't think about money. Money doesn't matter. And I say this because most often people think you need money to do things, and that becomes a barrier. And I think a lot of time people talk about bootstrapping, but I think that term is a little overused or romanticized, because in my personal experience, when I started my company at 19, I didn't even have anything to bootstrap with. I didn't have any money. And I started my company to actually pay my way through college. So the way I was able to kind of get over that hurdle is because I basically had a mindset that I'm going to do this by any means necessary. And I think that should be everybody's mindset. You shouldn't be waiting for validation, whether it's from angel investors or VCs or whoever else. If you think there's an opportunity and you want to pursue it, go out there and do it. And what's going to happen is you're going to keep being able to get over hurdles and hit milestones, and other people around are going to start recognizing it. So I would actually say don't think about money. If you want to do something, go and do it and be crafty, and you'll come to realize that most often you have access to people or resources that you could tap into for free that don't require you putting out a single dollar.
No, I like that. So speaking of that, talking about not putting money out for a single dollar, is this the first time where you guys have pursued an entity to this extent? Have any of you had exits before or had companies that you've been with in this time frame or this level of dedication before?
So Wheelie's my third company. So the first legit business I did was the catering company when I was 19. And I did that because I did my freshman year of college at Wesleyan, but then I had to drop out because my father lost his job at the time, and my parents were going to be able to put me through school. And I owed Wesleyan $10,000, so I couldn't even transfer to another school because they were holding on to my transcript. So I get back to New York City, and I'm basically trying to figure out, what kind of jobs could I pick up to pay back my debt and finish school. But I quickly realized just working jobs like being a waiter or busing or temping for agencies, I was just never going to be able to cut it, also with the cost of living in New York. So that was my motivation to launch Touche de Finesse. And the reason I started with that business is because I was trying to figure out what kind of business could I actually start without any capital, because I didn't have any money. And catering made sense because if you think about it, you have very low fixed costs. You only rent a kitchen when you have an event, you only buy food when you have an event, and you only hire staff when you have an event. So all it was about, it was just really about marketing and hustle and leveraging your network to get that first client, get that client to put a big enough deposit on the event so you could go cover whatever those costs may be. So we're able to grow that business to doing hundreds of thousands in revenue, pay my way through college doing that. I then went on to co-found a film production company, and now Wheelie's the third business.
Awesome. And for Fathom, is this you guys' first business of this level?
Yeah, at this level, it's definitely, I think, our first business. It's not a little stuff I've done in the past, but nothing to this extent.
Okay. And for York?
Yeah, I've never,
You've been
I've had like 20 different T-shirt businesses where we sold $10,000 here, $10,000 there, but they were never like, they were all just offshoots.
Okay.
Like, yeah.
Okay, awesome. So one of the things that you're talking about when you have a business and you have an idea and you're out there, you have a product. What would you say is the best kind of tip, if you will, on how you hack growth? Like, how do you get customers at a large scale so that you can, have that large scale offshoot?
Someone else want to start this one?
I don't know. That's and I know I'm going to sound like I go against everything, but I also don't like that term hacking growth because marketing, it's an exercise. It's a marathon. It's not like you just do something and all of a sudden you see a crazy spike. Most often that's the product of like a multitude of things that you've done. So something we do internally at our team is like each week we have a meeting where we talk about what have you read or educated yourself on other marketing strategies that other companies have implemented, and we try to think about, okay, how do we apply that to Wheelie? So the way we think about marketing and the way we saw our growth in our first market at UVM was really just by going at it every week. It's really like a week-to-week mentality where you're testing so many things, but you're also measuring the outcomes. Yeah. And you're looking for clues as to, okay, is this working? If it's working, cool, let's invest more engineering time. If not, let's scrap it and let's move on to the next test. So that's our philosophy. That's my personal philosophy behind it, is that marketing is an exercise and you need to just continually be at it in order to see the results over the long term.
Right, and I think there's a few different ways that you can technically growth hack. That's a term that gets thrown around a lot too.
Very much so. Huh? I said very much so. Sorry.
Yeah. No. That's okay. It's just it can mean a bunch of different things. But I think, and this is going to sound very old school of me, and my co-founders always get after me for being kind of old school sometimes. But you can never understate the importance of just going out and talking to people. Especially in this day and age where millennials. Us, we get really kind of trashed sometimes for being really impersonal and really digital about how we do things, where there's obviously a time and place for digital marketing, and learning how to maybe growth hack that, where you can get more followers on Twitter or more signups on Instagram or more newsletter followers. That's great and that's important, but that face-to-face contact is so understated, especially these days, where if you talk to one person and you get one person to bite on your idea, that could lead to 3 more people, which could lead to 10 more people, because word of mouth is huge. And if you get that face-to-face contact, that's much more personal than trying to just get their email for your newsletter. So that's just one tip. If you're trying to get customers, don't be afraid to just go talk to them. Go to their place of business, call ahead. Maybe don't be super creepy and just show up at their door. But just talk to them in person. That's never a bad idea.
Yeah, and to kind of go off that too, I think one thing so I also help out at Hope College's entrepreneurship program, and I get asked all the time, how do I even talk to people? What do you even talk about? And I think it's those customer interviews. If you read the Lean Startup book, literally doing those interviews is so important. We actually spent an entire summer 2 years ago. We interviewed anyone and everyone. We did over 1,000 interviews, just getting feedback and just learning what their daily life is. Why would they even be interested in what we're doing? We were on YouTube, Reddit, Facebook, Twitter. There wasn't a social media platform we didn't reach out to people, and we were like, hey, can we do a 15-minute Google Hangout video and chat with you, and just kind of get your feedback on what we're doing. And there's so many people, investors, they won't bite on that, but everyone out, a ton of people would love to talk about themselves. And if you can give them that platform for 15 minutes, you get so much feedback. That's actually incredibly valuable to you because you're learning your customers, learning where they're going, so you can actually apply that to digital media strategies and different things down the road. And then growth hacking, so to speak, can be used more effectively.
Can I expand on that too?
Yeah.
And it's funny you say that you let people talk about themselves for 15 minutes, because I bet you at the end of that 15-minute conversation of just like listening to someone talk about themselves, they now are interested in your product.
Right.
If you go to sell, like just letting someone tell you about themselves and what their thing is, like now you have a customer. I'm gonna kind of go along with that too. I'm not a big I don't really do the hacking thing. Like I said at the first question, I'm more of a hustler, and like that's a real big reason why we decided to open a storefront. Mall rent is astronomically expensive, but like the value of talking to 30 people a day face to face and like making those personal connections, I just think is a way better way to go about it, and it's not scalable, you know, per se, but at least early on and like getting that initial core, that will start to scale itself and snowball.
Okay.
Yeah, and guys, final point on that. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think there's an essay by Paul Graham who wrote "Don't Do Things That Don't Scale,"
Yep.
and especially early on, because then you actually learn what you're doing and what's important. Definitely recommend reading that just online, Paul Graham's website, because like you need to learn what's going on, and the other piece that you might be doing something that they don't care about, and that's not worth your time, and you don't want to put your money into that either. So.
Awesome. So, speaking of where you guys are at with your where you're at with your current customers, your current product base, you guys, for most of you, are either came to Detroit or based here, and give us some feel of what you've learned best about the Detroit ecosystem that helped you take your company from where it was a few months ago to where it is now.
I would say the coolest thing about Detroit, and I've been fortunate enough to live in Chicago, Seattle, Lansing, Columbus, and I grew up in Metro Detroit, but I've never felt a sense of everyone being like on the same wavelength. Like we do stuff at Pony Ride, which is a co-working space kind of, but co-manufacturing. We do a lot with them, a lot of just events, but like everyone, no matter where you are, is always like, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but everyone just seems to kind of get it. Like they're all trying to do their thing and they're trying to support each other, and there's just like a really good collective feel, and it really helps because everyone wants to support you and what you're doing, and it makes it easy to make the connections that you need and to get from A to B.
Yeah, and a similar, kind of note to that too. I think something that I've heard and didn't really buy into until I was able to go other places was that there's a tremendous sense of collaboration, not only just in Detroit, but in the state of Michigan too. And a lot of people say it's really hard to fundraise here, and that can be tough. It can be tough to, grow different things here. But at the same time, the amount of collaboration that we felt in the state of Michigan, specifically Detroit, and that they always call the ecosystem that exists here. If we just, it's amazing. You can reach out to people and you actually get a response. You can get valuable feedback. You can get advice, and that's awesome. And you can't really put a value on that, but. I think more than a lot of places I've been to and visited, this Detroit is one of the best as far as having people that just have your back that don't really even know you, which is pretty cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, from Detroit standpoint, because we're in Grand Rapids, I grew up here in the Metro Detroit area, and honestly, I didn't learn anything about entrepreneurship until I graduated high school. And I think the interesting part is like when I started my entrepreneurial journey, like probably 5-6 years ago. It was like Detroit was like sort of there, sort of not. Grand Rapids was almost non-existent, and I think from our standpoint, like it's grown so much in the past 5 years that we've been going. Like every quarter, every month, there's something new that's going on. Detroit and Grand Rapids, with people just there's Techstars came to town. There's Tech Town here in Detroit that's doing amazing things, and I think there's like. The other piece of it is that Detroit's a big city, but it's also not big. Like it's small enough that you can network really easily within it, and everyone's willing to help. We send weekly updates, and the amount of people that are like, yeah, like, I can help you with that. Like that's awesome, and everyone's willing to help. And I think it's the network and resources with people. I think that's probably the overarching thing with everything right now is people.
Awesome.
So since I've been honest about a lot of things today, I'm going to keep it going. So I was definitely one that underestimated Detroit, particularly. I'm from New York, grew up in New York, and when we got into Techstars, I was like, damn, we got to go to Michigan. But I'm very happy to say that I've been very positively impressed in the sense that if you want to talk about mobility or transportation, this is still the place to be. And I didn't fully recognize that and grasp that until I came here, and through the 3 months we spent in Techstars, the connections we made, and just to echo some of what these gentlemen said, like people are just super supportive, particularly compared to a place like New York where, excuse the language, but some people could be a little stuck up. Here in Detroit, it's a lot more casual. Even people that have accomplished some very amazing things, a lot more reachable. And you could just really have a conversation with them, and they're willing to share that knowledge and experience. So definitely 2 thumbs up and big up to Detroit.
Awesome. So one of the, as you mentioned, we're obviously known for mobility out in Ann Arbor side of the state. Know a lot from the biotech and health sciences and things like that. In general, we have a really strongly growing kind of tech ecosystem as a whole. What are you guys' opinions on what you think is overhyped as far as the next startup thing? What do you guys think is people are, talking about, but you don't really think that something's going to come from it?
Come from it or when?
I'll say come from it.
I think autonomous vehicles are overhyped, but it's going to happen. Just probably not in the time window that everybody's speaking about, but yeah.
Okay.
It's a good one. I don't want to trash anybody here by telling them their ideas. Yeah, that's overhyped.
You can say you don't like wheelie, John. It's all right.
Yeah.
I felt it coming from you these past 3 months.
I would agree with JP. I think autonomous vehicles, specifically in Michigan, can be there's always a strategic plan that's always been laid out. Like by 2020, everything's going to be whatever. I think we just need to be realistic with ourselves in that regard. But it is exciting because it will happen. It's just a matter of when. So
Timing.
right.
Okay.
Honestly, I'm probably a little bit. I don't know if I have enough knowledge to say like one is worse. I think it's the biggest. There's now we're getting really deep into tech, and we're so focused on the drone space, and now we're into travel. I think for from our standpoint, VR and AR is something that's really cool. It's been talked about a lot.
Mm-hmm.
How much is it actually valuable? I don't know. And I think that's just something that's going to keep going. But there's a lot of cool AR stuff that we've seen, like with doctors' surgeries and stuff like that. That stuff has been really ridiculously cool. But it's a timing piece again.
I will say there is maybe one thing that I did, aside from autonomous vehicles, a lot of smart things in IoT.
Yeah.
Holy cow. Because we kind of play in that space a little bit with our product. It's internet connected. We have a cloud-based platform. We kind of fit that Trojan horse mentality that a lot of IoT products have. But you guys, a smart
Salt shaker?
Yeah, salt shaker. It's just like you don't need Bluetooth for your
Some people want to
tablecloth.
control their salt intake.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just things like that where I think at the end of the day it goes back to the really at the core of what you're doing. What value are you providing people? So maybe a Bluetooth speaker in your salt shaker isn't providing that much value unless you want to go for the cool factor. Just at the core of whatever you do, just remember that there needs to be a clear value proposition or a clear, like in our case, an experience we're trying to provide. So just keep that very much at the forefront of your mind no matter what stage you're in. And you'll avoid the pitfall of, like we said, creating something that people don't care about. So.
Okay. Cool. So I guess in your respective journeys, what has been what you would say your biggest learning to date? And those typically come, which is the word we hate to say, those typically come from failures, things that you've learned from. What's your biggest learning to date?
I would say for us, it's been opening the store that we did. And this is kind of crazy to say, and it might be incorrect, but I don't think we've ever had a major failure.
Okay.
Everything's always been positively trending. Little bumps or whatever, but there's never been a big you messed up, you failed. What do we do? Which is good and bad. I'm a firm believer that adversity is a great thing because it forces you to get creative. But I like just opening a store and really being in front of people on a. I worked 100 hours last week, that kind of a thing, has really just kind of taught me just how real things are and how we actually fall. It's forced me to be realistic with myself and with our team about where we stand.
Fabin?
Yeah, I think, and Matt can elaborate more on this too, but there's a very clear time in our lives about 6 months ago that we very realistically thought we were just going to walk away from Fathom entirely. You know, we were just going to say we're done. You know, this is too much. We had a huge falling out with the design firm. It was a hard time, and it was one of those times when you have to step back and do a lot of soul searching, not only through yourself but also with your co-founders. And that taught us something really important: is that you just have to be really realistic with yourself and your expectations for what you're doing. And also that you need, at the end of the day, even if the company is going down in flames, you need to be able to trust your co-founding members, the people that you started this journey with. And that was something that, you know, was really apparent to me, and something I feel very blessed for, is that I know at the end of the day, no matter what's happening, my co-founders are always acting in my best interest. And it really took that really gritty, really terrible time, and really honestly a tough phase of our company to realize that fully and really appreciate it. But just know that, you know, when you do a startup, when you start a company or have an idea, it is so up and down. I mean, I hate to use a cliche roller coaster example, but it is, because it was a few weeks, it was like a month after that, we found out we got into Techstars. It was like, you know, this 180 turnaround. So just know that you need to be very realistic with your expectations, and you need to trust your co-founding team, your entire team for that exam, you know, for that matter. But that was one of the biggest takeaways I think I've had from this whole experience.
Yeah, so I would echo that completely. So I think as Fathom, we've gone through the roller coaster, and I think the biggest thing that I've personally learned is just you have to be level-headed. You know, it can be really high, it can be really low, but you have to stay level-headed to kind of keep going through, because like as JP has mentioned earlier, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And if you can endure that marathon, it's doing great. But I think the other piece is that to kind of go along with that, to help with those lows and the highs, it's really being a balancing, like really not a balancing individual, but having harmony in your life with, startup, working out, family life, like all those different things, and having that harmony between all of it. That's what we learned through Techstars, which I didn't realize we would learn through that, is really having that harmony between all the aspects of life. Because if you get that, life is so it's so beneficial and so fulfilling when you get all those aspects of life going really well.
So from a Wheelie perspective, your journey in building Wheelie, when did you know that you had something that was a viable idea? Like at what point was that pivot that you needed to go forward?
From the beginning. Well, me, it was a personal issue when I was in college at Wesleyan, right? So it was something that was very tangible, very personal, I also knew my friends went through it. And to kind of echo what these guys said, I think that it's very important to believe in yourself. And I don't mean believing in yourself bragging, thinking you're the smartest, the best or anything, but I mean believing in yourself and not being afraid to believe in your vision. I think a lot of times we get scared at we have imposter syndrome, am I the person that could create this thing? Am I the person that could build this? And I just kind of learned very on in my business experience that, if you believe in something hard enough and you give yourself the tools and the circumstance to succeed, the universe is going to conspire with you. And I often, not to offend anyone in here, but I often compare it to a religion in the sense that, it starts with you. And if you believe in it, then you find co-founders that believe in it, then you found customers that believe in it. And as next thing you know, it's not just you and two co-founders, but it's thousands of people, then tens of thousands, and hundreds of thousands. So I just think you shouldn't be afraid to believe in the vision and believe that you could be the person creating something amazing.
Okay, awesome. So I wanted to give a chance for maybe to ask one or two questions, if anybody in the audience had any questions for our teams. Yes, no? No, yes? Oh, there you go. In the blue? No.
Here.
I think I'm going to ask you an unanswerable question. I keep hearing people say you have to have values for the customer. What do you mean by values?
You said that was a question, when we define adding value to the customer, what does value mean?
Right. In shirt sleeve English, how would you describe when you're saying values? I mean, I understand if you're purchasing something and it's less than what the going market is, the value was, that it's cheaper. When you're dealing and trying to build a business on values, what does that mean?
Sure.
I think value basically, so I'll speak in our personal example, like when we first launched our web platform, it had all these bells and whistles that students just didn't use, right? And what value means is that why are people actually using your product? Why are people purchasing that thing? Why are people purchasing that service? And you come to find out that, you know, when you look at it from an aggregate, you start seeing like, okay, here's the value proposition. Here's why students are using Wheelie. So for us, we had an idea of what value was, at least based on my personal experience, and I've come to learn that it is slightly different when we look at the aggregate and the reality. So what we understand is that college kids start using our app basically when Uber and Lyft become too expensive. So they use our app to do trips that are going to be 20 minutes or longer, and the reason why is because around 20-25 minutes, that's when they no longer have a valuable proposition and Wheelie becomes interesting. But that's something that we've learned through time, and I'm sure it's something that's going to keep evolving as we grow.
Yeah, and to kind of go off that too, I think the piece that, to me, like value is always where it affects someone's time and or money. For Wheelie, it's, you know, hey, like they get to travel easier and it's cost effective. For us at Fathom, you know, there's it's twofold, but there's, you know, the money piece of it. For resorts, we can be more cost-effective marketing play and all these other different factors. And then for guests, it's the whole like, hey, I get to experience like the resorts and different things in a whole new way that I never would have been able to. So I'm affecting their time at the resort. So if you're affecting someone's time and their money, I think that's where the real value is. If you're not doing either of those, then you're not providing a ton of value to their customers.
And like the last thing I'll just tack on to the end of that is just that I think at the end of the day too, whatever that value may be, the customer needs to tell you that. You know, that's just what we found too, is that we couldn't say, we're providing you this value.
But just to interrupt you, John, like sometimes the customer doesn't know. Like for example, it's not like students told us, I don't want to use Uber or Lyft at this point, right? Like, I mean, sometimes you could get that, but sometimes you also kind of have to decipher it.
Yep, that's a good point as well.
No, really good. Well, I want to thank you guys. I want to thank you guys coming and talking about your experiences with Wheelie, York, and Fathom. And I want to thank you for lending us your time and your experience to the audience. And I thank you, audience, for being a good interactor with us. And we're going to end the session now. Thank you.